will Sony announce the much anticipated Sony a7S IV in January? Or has Sony discontinued the a7S line with the FX3? Well, we just got word that Sony is planning to announce an FX camera, and it's going to happen in the new year, most likely January. Could it be the successor to the FX3, the FX6, or the FX9? Well, then stick around after this short message. But first, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest camera news. And for all the minor news stories, all those news stories not quite big enough to have their own separate video, follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter. When covering these sorts of stories, I think it's very important to start with what we know. Sony registered 3 cameras in September. Last week, Sony announced the A9 III, with a global shutter that continues to reverberate through the camera industry. And with pre-orders already having started, we're going to have to wait until the spring of 2024 before Sony starts shipping it, and that's according to Sony themselves. The Sony A9 III, that was WW459276, which was registered on September the 20th. So what about the other 2 camera registrations? What 2 other cameras could we expect Sony to announce in the next couple of months? Yes, we do have Christmas in the way, so December is the most unlikely time that we could have a camera announcement. But any time up until the end of November is possible, plausible, but unlikely. And of course, starting the second week of January to the end of January is most likely. I'd say by the end of January at the very latest, we will have 2 announcements by Sony. Could one of those cameras be the Sony a7S IV? Or what about the Sony Alpha 1 Mark II? Well, according to Sony Alpha Rumors, registration WW559681 is the code for the Sony LR1, and that's an industrial cinema camera, while WW279317 is definitely a new video-oriented camera, because according to Sony Alpha Rumors, it's produced in Shanghai, where Sony makes their video cameras, which makes Sony Alpha Rumors think that this could be the new FX6 or the FX9 successor. But hold on a minute here. I think something else might be going on here. In August of 2020, Sony did announce the a7S III. It's been out in the market for the better part of 3.5 years. 1 year after that, Sony announced the FX3. Had the exact same video resolutions and refresh rates, the same capabilities, with the exception that it was meant to shoot a whole lot longer. It was more of a cinema camera, even though it didn't have internal ND filters. And it had XLR inputs, and it was a slightly larger body, allowing it to shoot for a whole lot longer without any worries of overheating. And at the time, when we compared both the FX3 to the a7S III, a lot of us asked the very simple question: has Sony effectively killed off the S line? That there won't be an a7S IV, that instead we'll get an FX3 Mark II? And it's certainly plausible. However, in January, when Sony announces an FX camera, if it's the FX3 Mark II, well, that pretty well tells us that Sony is done with the a7S line and that we won't get an a7S IV. At least we most likely won't. Remember, this is Sony, and what does Sony like to do? Well, they like to release lots of cameras. When Sony announced the a7C II and the a7CR, they didn't kill off the a7C. Sony has so many different camera models that just because they release the FX3 Mark II, it doesn't mean right away that Sony is going to kill off the a7S IV, but it wouldn't look good. In fact, when I look at the capabilities of the a7S III and I look at the FX3, whenever somebody asks me which camera I should get, I keep telling them over and over again, get the FX3, unless of course you want to save half the price and get the FX3, which has almost identical capabilities, but shooting with a crop sensor, an APS-C format. You see, when Sony announced the a7S III in June of 2020, it marked 5 years since the release of the a7S II. Sony was quoted at the time as saying that the lack of competition was the reason for the long wait. But as we get ready to close out 2023, with the Nikon Z8, the Nikon Z9, and the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, and the Canon EOS R1 expected to be released in early 2024, as well as a refresh of the Panasonic S line, the same can't be said for the competition today. The competition today, here in late 2023 and going into 2024, is alive and well, at least for that market segment. So why is Sony waiting? Why is Sony waiting close to 4 years? In fact, by the time we do get an announcement of the a7S IV, if it does come, well, it's going to be, well, pretty much close to 4 years. 4 years since we got the announcement of the a7S III. What do you think? Do you think that Sony's finally killed off the a7S line and hasn't told us that the FX3 is taking over and that we'll see an FX3 Mark II? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. But here at The Ordinary Filmmaker, we certainly think that it's plausible that Sony has killed off the a7S line with the FX3. We'll just have to wait and see more. Now, as far as Sony Alpha Rumors has said, they haven't gone one way or another to say whether it's been killed off or not. In fact, they've talked about, they were hinting at the a7S IV to be coming out later this year. That now has been scrapped. In fact, Sony Alpha Rumors has said when it comes to the a7S IV or even the Alpha 1 Mark II, don't expect them to come anytime soon. But now for just one last thing. If you're looking at purchasing camera gear, bodies, lenses, or accessories between now and Black Friday or Christmas, then please consider using my affiliate links for B&H, Adorama, or Amazon.com. I get a small commission back anywhere from around 2% to 12%, and it really does help fund this channel. It really helps this channel grow. And that's one of the reasons I'm looking at purchasing camera gear such as the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, and I am purchasing it, the Canon EOS R1, but I'm also looking at purchasing the Canon 24-105 f2.8, as well as the Canon RF 35mm f1.2 or 1.4. And yes, we don't have any prediction. We don't have any announcement. We don't even have any teasers, but I'm willing to bet that lens has got to come sometime in the first half of 2024. But honestly, I couldn't do it without your help. And for those of you that have used my affiliate links, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. It's one of the reasons why this channel is where it is today. I don't believe in just reading off scripts and talking about lenses and rumors and news and forecasting new cameras. I believe in purchasing them myself. So that way, when I'm talking about the 200 to 800 millimeter, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to shooting with the 100 to 500 millimeter or the 800 millimeter. And when I get the 24-105 f2.8, I can talk to you from a viewpoint of what it's like to shoot with a 24-105 f4 or the variable aperture one. So I thank you so much for supporting this channel using my affiliate links. It means an awful lot to me. But also, don't forget to subscribe. Follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, because whenever I publish a new video, you get notified that way. But also, whenever there's deals coming out, like $1,000 off the Canon EOS R3, $1,200 off the Canon EOS R5, yes, I will often put them in the description down below, but most often I'll tweet those out. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon.